Okay, the purpose of this video is for me to do a short informal review of the Jerome Callet Superchops 1SS mouthpiece. That's a bit of a mouthful. I'm also going to be talking a little bit about Bahb Civiletti's TCE No. 3 mouthpiece, because as I will show you, they're actually pretty similar, and I think it's worthwhile talking about the two and which one I would recommend. I'll start off by giving you a quick overview of the typical sort of features of a Jerome Callet Superchops mouthpiece, because they're all quite similar. I do have a little pile of them actually, so if you check out the link below, then you'll see that there is a Flickr album that you can go to, and you can see I've taken photos for you to compare all the different Superchops mouthpieces. But anyway, the 1SS, I've mounted it on a piece of card to trick my camera into focusing onto that instead of my pretty face, and you can take a look. So pause this video and let's get that, there we go, that's in focus. So if I turn it this way, you can see, okay, so this is a fairly shallow, actually by many people's standards extremely shallow double cup mouthpiece. It has got a fairly flat rim. You'll be able to see that better in the photos. Really the thing that will probably shock most people more than the fact that it's a shallow double cup mouthpiece is the fact that the internal diameter is somewhere in the Bahb 20 designation sort of range. So if you've read the Vincent Bach mouthpiece guide on my blog, trumpetpla.net, trumpetpla.net/blog, then there's an article on there about Vincent Bach mouthpieces, and I talk about how they're basically categorized into small, medium and large. The large mouthpieces being in the 17mm internal diameter range at so anything from a Bach 1 to a from a Bach say 1 1/4, 1 1/2, all of those sorts of things. The Bach 1 is actually in a world of its own at 17.5mm, so extra large. Coming down from there, anything in the 6, 7 or 8 range would be medium, and then when you sort of get around the 10.5C and smaller range, then that's the smaller mouthpieces. But they're right down at the bottom of the chart. There are those with an incredibly small internal diameter, which is the less than 15mm range, and for many people they would say that these mouthpieces are basically unplayable. In fact, one of my pupils sent the Bahb Civiletti TCE 3 mouthpiece to Jason Harrelson, and he couldn't believe that anybody played on a mouthpiece like that, so it's quite funny stuff. Here, just for reference, is the let me pop it out of its sheath, the Bahb Civiletti TCE mouthpiece. Now, I've had this one cut down by a friend of mine because I didn't want it to be a heavyweight anymore. But for the sake of this, when we get onto the recordings, I will actually include, I will be playing them with a Dennis Wick booster of, my video just skipped then, I don't know if it's actually happened on the recording, but I was just saying I'm going to use a Dennis Wick booster just so that you get an idea of how this mouthpiece is intended to sound. The only thing left to do is to compare the two, and you'll see that really they've both got a flat rim. Yeah, that's not focusing, I need the card. Let's get this involved. There we go. You'll see that they've both got a flat rim. It's the same internal diameter. It's still what you would call a cushion rim, but the Bahb Civiletti mouthpiece has got a standard sort of C cup, whereas the Jerome Callet has the double cup, which is a feature of his Superchops mouthpieces. If we were to explain this 1SS completely, I would say it's the classic Jerome Callet No. 4 back bore, or at least the updated version of that. It is the Horst Fischer internal diameter. It is the Harry James double cup. with a 29 throat. The Bahb Civiletti mouthpiece also has a 29 throat, and the back bore is probably a little larger, more like a Bach 76. I'm taking that sort of from memory, but that's the kind of back bore that you'd have got with Vincent Bach D cup, just for reference. Okay, so coming on to the characteristics of the mouthpiece. When I first picked this thing up and shoved it in a trumpet, I actually found it a little bit lively, a little bit too efficient, because I've been playing on Warburton mouthpieces in the 7 range, which are a little larger, more around your 10.5 C size. And I found, you know, a very percussive sound, well projecting, a little bit aggressive. But I have managed to rein that in. I've been using it for a couple days. I don't really want to talk too much about the sound because it's much easier to show you, and so I'm going to do some playing. I'm going to play the same things on these 2 mouthpieces, and I've also got here my Warburton 7SV, which I will use as a control, but only in terms of you being able to hear you know, the difference in tone that, yes, comes from the double cut, but also comes from, you know, slightly larger internal, or a more traditional mouthpiece, if you know what I mean. Okay, so hopefully those recordings have given you a better idea, or an actual good idea of what these mouthpieces are capable of. Um, you have heard me doing pedal notes, classical baroque music, and some Louis Armstrong type, early jazz stuff. Those are the sorts of things that I tend to do a lot of in my playing. High note trumpet player and all that. But this is the thing, you've got a good idea of the sort of range of sounds that come from these two mouthpieces. Now let's talk about how they feel when I play them. The thing with a double cup, let me just put this back on the card. The thing with a double cup is that it tends to lower the resistance, so the feedback that you feel, no, not necessarily the feedback, but the back pressure that you feel from the instrument as you play. Now in the lower register, that makes it feel more open than a mouthpiece that is this shallow with a 29 throat, and it can give you quite a vibrant sound. But the problem is that as you are ascending into the upper register, the resistance doesn't increase in the same way that it does with a traditional C cup mouthpiece, and so you don't feel that you're getting the same support from that shallow cup that almost that you deserve. I mean, people who know me know that I've gone back to my Superchops 3 mouthpiece many times because I find it very reliable, very flexible. It works in almost all playing situations. I probably wouldn't use something like this for symphonic playing, obviously. And actually, in my classical work recently, I've been using a Warburton 7MD with a 10 back bore, and that seems to be a good balance for small internal diameter, but still quite a big brassy sound. The sort of sound that people expect to hear. It's got lots of tonal colour and it's interesting. But anyway, coming back to the subject of all of this, let's talk about this thing next. When I compare the two, this is a Superchops 2, but it's actually almost the same as a Superchops 3. When I compare this to the 1SS, you can see that they're quite physically different in terms of the Superchops 2 and or 3 mouthpieces are quite a bit bigger, but they basically sound exactly the same. I've played on a bunch of Superchop mouthpieces, and really, Jerome Callet is after one particular thing, and that is this Harry James sound, which these mouthpieces all make very well because they're based upon one of his actual mouthpieces. I think that if I was a TCE newbie coming to a 1SS, I would be really freaked out and I wouldn't be able to play well for, maybe 2 or 3 months, acclimatizing to a mouthpiece this small. Like I said before, not many people would ever choose to play on a mouthpiece this small, but in the TCE world, this is pretty standard, a standard thing. And actually, you'll hear that I've been using small mouthpieces now for over 5 years, and if I go on to even a Bach 3C, then it takes a bit of work for me to stop sounding fluffy and spread and just all sorts of note production problems and stuff that are inherent with larger equipment, which causes people to overblow and mess up their chops. Anyway, coming back to just to tidy this up, because I don't want to jabber on forever. If it came to me recommending to a pupil whether to buy a Jerome Callet 1SS mouthpiece or a Bahb Civiletti TCE 3, I think you can tell from the recordings that the TCE 3 does have a slightly fuller sound. It may be that the 1SS is acoustically louder, but if I'm playing in a loud amplified situation, the point is that it is amplified. I don't need that kind of volume of sound when you're playing 2 inches from a microphone, and so I would choose the TCE 3 because it's got a slightly fuller tone, a better range of colours. Something that's worth noting as well, however, is that when I played the Louis Armstrong type clip, the 1SS was better in the low register. The TCE 3 gets fluffy down there, and that's why I stopped using it, to be honest. once certainly getting around down to that low B flat I ended on, you can hear a bit of fuzz in the sound. That's not present with the 1SS. But anyway, here's another thing. The TCE3 mouthpiece is cheaper. So go check out TCE Studio if you are interested in buying one of those, or callettrumpets.com if you're interested in the 1SS. I need to say at this point that I'm not employed or obliged to recommend any equipment to anybody, but this is just based upon my personal experience, and I know quite, a few people, 1 or 2 people in the world value my opinion about such things. So I hope you found that interesting. I hope you found it useful. Please, any questions, comments below, email me through one of my websites. Go to tonguecontrol.info to read about the TCE, and then you can drop me a line through there. Thanks for watching.